Okay, so you've applied, you've interviewed, you've got an offer, you've accepted, and now you've started. And so now what I want to do is shift to the point where now, I'm no longer an applicant, I'm a person about to start, I'm actually in the role, and I am actually playing recruiting functions at the firm, and convey some lessons I've learned. So the first is what I learned about during being a resume screener. And so I've probably screened like 1,000 resumes at least at the firm. And so these are 3 things that I wanted to communicate to you during this process as you're putting together your resumes. So the first is, don't make me hunt for leadership experience. And so this is another way of saying this is help me help you. So as a resume screener, I really want to pass you along for an interview because we're excited to get good talent in the door. But it's just really tough when I have to mine your resume for this experience and build a case of why you should get an interview if it doesn't easily jump out at me. And consistently, the trait that I personally was looking for that was the most hidden, even though folks might have had these skills, was leadership experience. And if you're coming through an MBA program, I think you might be more used to constructing such resumes that display this. But for folks that may have engineering backgrounds or technology backgrounds or just non-traditional business backgrounds, I find that they don't highlight this part well enough on their resumes. And so a tactical piece of advice is literally have a section called leadership experience with 1 or 2 examples of showing that stuff. And the larger the experience is, the more you can quantify how large or how intense or how interesting these experiences were, the better. But just call it out and don't be afraid to just have a section there that actually points it out. It'll just make my job as a resume screener much easier. The second is cover letters don't really matter, or they didn't really matter to me. I would almost never read them. I would first go directly to the resume and sort of the feedback that the recruiters might have initially, and then the cover letter would almost be secondary if I would look at it at all. So cover letters don't really matter, and in brackets here I said, and neither do the programming languages that and this is just kind of just like a joke. I'll get these resumes where people are, engineering students are writing about, I can code in C++ and Java and this and that and HTML, and all that stuff is good, but I don't really need to know that, and you won't need to use that. And just the point here is just understand what type of job you're applying for and the types of things that you need to put on your resume. But I wouldn't burn too many calories thinking about good cover letters unless there's something really unique that you want the recruiters to know. It could be maybe you had like a family situation or a unique situation that resulted in something on your resume, or maybe you have something really unique to communicate that's not coming across on your resume. But really, cover letters to me are just on the margin. And finally, I do believe that brand names really help on the resume. So that doesn't mean that you need to be coming from a top 10 school, working at a blue chip company, having all of this quote unquote sexy experience. All that it means is that to the extent that you are able to show that you've broken through in an institution that we know and understand already has a rigorous recruiting process, it helps. So as you're thinking about things like where to accept internships, where, if you're not applying to consulting firms right away, you might be applying in a year or 2, what to do at that time. If you look at your resume and you don't already have sort of a brand name on it, think about maybe finding a way to add that to complement your existing experience, because it really does help. And to be honest, it is something that we look for. I mean, like I said, not across the board in everything that you do, but to the extent that you can show that you've at least broken into one of those such institutions, be it educational, professional, nonprofit, just things like that, it really does help. So think about that as you're planning your career pre-consulting. So now let me take you through lessons that I have for you being a recruiting leader. And being a recruiting leader, I mean someone who has been responsible for basically hiring folks out of specific universities. So in here, my role that I'm giving you a lesson for was as someone who is planning events, is marketing the positions, it's talking to folks on campus, it's getting folks to apply, all this stuff. So just building awareness and networking on campus. So the first thing is, all of these recruiting leaders, they have what's called a high potential list. And it's basically a database of candidates that are coming up for different recruiting seasons. And these are folks that they really want to encourage to apply. And if they apply, they have a higher chance of getting an interview. So really do what you can to get on my high potential list. So the question is, well, how do you do that? And basically the first thing you need to do is basically get in front of someone, right? So try to attend all the events, try to get your name known, speak to the recruiters, speak to the consultants who are recruiting leaders, and just stay in touch with them as much as you can, and just try to get on their list. You'll never know if you're on their list, but basically if you're getting invites to specific coffee chats, dinners, things like that, if you're getting heads up about events that are coming, that's a good sign. And do what you can to continue to remain on that list and attend all the events. So the second thing is, as you're meeting consultants at these events on campus, it comes back to what I had mentioned earlier during interviewing, is that the personal questions are absolutely the best questions. Most consultants, most people generally love talking about themselves, so ask them about themselves. So ask them questions like, and these are the best questions I would get asked to me from candidates. It's when they would ask me specifically, Shahan, where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you see yourself going? Like, what are your career goals? And do you see yourself at the firm? Do you see yourself somewhere else? Things like that. Or, how did you choose going into consulting? And now that you're here, do you like your decision? Or things like that, and just have them talk about themselves, ask them about their current project, things like that. Some of these questions are cliche, and that's totally fine. But I really like those questions where people wanted to understand what I wanted to do with my career going forward. So I would encourage you to engage folks that way, and then you really, I think, strike a personal connection then, and it's someone, you're now someone that the other person really, thinks about. And then finally, do what you can to attend every possible event. This is just comes back down to the mantra of that this is a numbers game. I understand that there is a huge opportunity cost to doing all of this. You guys are busy folks. You'll have competing priorities. There'll be competing events. But, do what you can during this recruiting phase. If it means focusing a little bit less on class, it means, communicating with your friends and family that, hey, this is going to be a busy time. I'm going to be attending a lot of these things. Do what you can to do it. I think it has a nonlinear impact. So what I mean by that is your success isn't correlated directly to the number of events that you attend. So you might attend one event, and the person you meet there you strike a chord with, you have great chemistry with, and that results in an interview. Or you might have to attend 100 events before you find that one person. But basically, the more at-bats that you give yourself, the higher likelihood it is that you'll get an interview. So do the best that you can to really get out there as much as possible.